Hey guys, welcome back to Ken Michaels Radio, where we talk Beatles all the time. And we have lots of special guests that we've been bringing on. And we've got one extremely special guest right now, someone who I'm proud to have called a friend for quite a long time. We first met back in the 80s when he was a guest on my radio show on WDHA in New Jersey. I've done several audio interviews with him. This is my first time on camera with him. And you know him from his many years back in the 60s as part of the British invasion and his association with the Beatles, having a number of Lennon and McCartney songs recorded by him and also George Martin producing him and Brian Epstein managing him. And that's Billy J. Kramer. Welcome to Ken Michaels Radio.
Hello, Ken. How are you?
Good. It's great to be doing this now on camera. For the first time.
Label on the front here. I don't know what it is.
Yeah. It's new to a lot of us, but today's technology is amazing. I'm surprised.
Yeah, it is.
With it.
Well, you know, I mean, I did some Zooming things at the start of the pandemic. And, I Zoom my sister all the time in New Zealand. It's amazing, you know.
I'm flabbergasted what we can do. It's like I've said before, it's kind of like watching the Jetsons. You know?
That's it. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, you know, I like it. A lot of people are sort of like criticize the new technology, but I don't. I just think that if it's used in a good way, I think it's wonderful.
Yeah. I love the fact that I can do interviews with people any part of the world this way. So
yeah, it's amazing.
So why don't we just start our conversation by talking about your very beginnings. Some of the questions that I'm about to ask you, I've asked you before, but it's nice to have you on camera saying this. And there's a lot of very general questions that people might not know the answers to. But first of all, most curious, because I've always loved your singing voice. Who were your influences strictly as a singer? Was there anyone at all that you tried to emulate?
Not really, you know. I mean, that is the thing today. I mean, you know, I just listened to a lot of music, and I did a lot of different singers. You know, I didn't sort of like, there wasn't one person that I liked Elvis, so I did Elvis songs, and I did things like Rick Nelson songs, and I did Del Shannon songs. You know, people that I just liked. But I was always like, I'll be very honest with you. What I used to do is I'd sort of play the 45. I would take down the lyrics, and then on the way to work on the bus, I'd just memorize the lyrics, and I tried to always never go back and play the records for that reason. You know, I was trying to find a style of my own.
So you never tried to say, let me try to sound a little bit like Elvis here or Rick Nelson there. You just wanted to sing naturally.
Yeah, I just liked the songs. I just wanted to do them, you know. And, you know, it's weird because, you know, I've being in the business as long as I have, there's a lot of different things that, you know, I've done. I mean, like when I did, like, for instance, Panzo in England, you know, it was a lot of the songs I'd never heard before. They were a completely different style. They weren't pop songs, you know. So there was that, you know, I went through all that. And then when I did this children's TV show called Discotheque, it was, you know, I had to learn a lot of songs because I was like, I hosted the show, but I had to, if the show was slow, I speeded it up. If the show was too fast, I slowed it down. So I had to learn all sorts of different songs all the time. And I think it was good stuff to do.
When you knew you wanted to be a singer, did you think of yourself as a pop singer, an R&B singer? How did you define yourself?
Yeah, I did define myself as just somebody, a singer. It was mostly pop that I sang, you know.
Yeah.
But I mean, the terms like R&B and stuff like that went around, really. You know, I mean, I would just like listen to like Radio Luxembourg and, you know, it was always like a mixed bag of material. You know, it wasn't one specific thing.
Right. That's the great thing about radio back then. They threw on so many different styles of music, but I guess nobody really classified each one. It was all just
No,
good
it was
music.
music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Your name, I know it's William Ashton is your real name,
Yes.
but the Kramer part you got from a telephone book?
Well, you see, we had a I had this group of like local friends, and you know that we tried all sorts of singers, and they one day they were very truthful. They said, you know, your guitar playing is not getting any better. Right? Maybe you should have a go, have a try at singing. So I did. I thought it was just going to be a passing phase at the time, and the thing was, you know, I got my guitar stolen, so I was lumbered into to singing. So they said, "Oh, we've got to get a name for you," and they came up with a list of names, and I called this telephone director lady and asked her what she liked the best, and she said Billy Kramer, and I said, "I don't mind as long as it's not some abusive name or you know, that I like being addressed to as Billy, so it had to be Billy something, you know."
Mm-hmm.
And then I'd recorded the song "Do You Want to Know a Secret," and it was just about to be, you know, pressed and come out, and John Lennon suggested to me that you should add a J to it to give it some, you know, so it would catch on.
Yeah.
And I think I thought it was a wonderful idea, you know, and I took it.
Okay. How the whole thing started with you getting a contract,
How did,
and
how did,
Brian discovering you. Was that through the Beatles?
um,
How exactly?
I think it was because, you know, there's a poll in a local paper, Merseybeat, and it was like the top 20, it was the top 20 groups. There was hundreds of groups, and I was playing around all the same places as the Beatles, you know, Aintree Institute, Litherland Town Hall, the Majestic Ballroom, Beckham, the Tower Ballroom, um, all these places, and I knew the guys, and you know, I came very high in a popularity poll in Merseybeat, and it was then that Brian approached me that he'd like to manage me. That's
Hmm.
how that came about.
So it was more from the results of the polls, or was it the Beatles possibly being an influence?
I take that, you know, also you know, I used to play 10-pin bowling with the Beatles sometimes in the bowling alley, you know, after gigs late on Saturday nights,
Mm-hmm.
stuff, you know, stuff like that. And I did a lot of shows, like I opened for them a lot, you know, and I think John thought I was a good singer, you know?
Right. Huh.
And
Now,
I think, you know, Brian was putting together what he called his stable of artists,
right.
and John, I think, said to him, "You should go check out that kid Billy Kramer," and that was it, you know.
All right. We're grateful that he did.
Well, I'm grateful, very grateful,
Yeah.
you know.
Did you know the Beatles when Pete Best was with them, or just from Ringo on?
No, I knew the Beatles um, when they first came on the scene. You know, like my first experience of seeing was I was just putting a band together, and I used to go to Litherland Town Hall, and they had this board, and they put the names of the bands that were coming up to play there, and it was like I forget what night of the week it was, but I went there. We all went there mostly to check out the girls, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and I just saw this name on this blackboard, the Beatles, and I thought, God, that's cool. And I went in, and the curtains opened, and Paul McCartney was singing "Long Tall Sally," and I went, wow,
Mm.
you know, that was the first time I saw the Beatles, and I knew right away they're going to be big, you know.
So that was right after they came back from Germany. That was the end of
Right,
1960.
yes, it was right after, and you know, I've said it many times. I remember walking home with my school friends and saying they're going to be as big as Elvis, and they were, "You've been drinking too much." You know? But I was, well, yeah, it's very strange because you see, to me, Liverpool, to me, the people in Liverpool are very unique people, and I can't really explain it, but they are different, and there's something special about them. And as a kid, I always thought, that something was. I didn't. Maybe the soccer team would be amazing, or something, would really put them on the world stage. I don't know. I just had that feeling.
Hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Did Brian treat you the same as all of his other artists?
Yeah, I think I don't know. I never asked them. I think he was very fair to everybody.
Okay.
You know,
How would you describe him as a manager, and what kind of guidance did he give you?
he gave me guidance like the the set list. He would come and watch shows unannounced. He wouldn't tell you he was coming. He would turn up, and he'd come backstage afterwards, and he'd say, this. I think if you announced it this way, it might be better.
Hmm.
Or that song doesn't really go, Billy. I think this other song that you do is better. And he was like that. He used to talk about the lighting and a lot of things.
He had his mind on everything, the whole presentation.
Absolutely. Well, there's that story of like when I first met the Dakotas. I don't know what their grief was, but they were like on to Brian about the way I dressed, because I was like, I used to wear all flashy clothes because I thought that's what kids were into.
Hmm.
But they said, "Oh, we're not going to play with him if he's dressing like that." So he said, "Billy, we're going to throw away the Christmas tree," which I thought was quite hilarious. And he gave me advice on what he thought, would be the right kind of things to wear, because at the time I was like overweight and stuff like that. And he said, why don't you wear black clothes and this, advice like that.
Hmm. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about Do You Want to Know a Secret, when you first recorded it. I know you said that when you first started performing it, it didn't go over that well.
Well, it was, Brian gave me a tape of John singing it. There was no arrangement, and I rehearsed it with the Dakotas. And to me, I did it on stage. I did it when I went to the Star Club every night a few times, and it didn't really, to me, it didn't like. Didn't get received anything special, and I mean, I thought it was a good song, and I think that I sang it well, in spite of what some of the critics said about me.
Hmm.
I think I did a good job for somebody who'd never recorded anything before in his life, but I didn't think it was going to be such a big hit.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, but I mean, you never know. I mean, I don't know all the answers. Sometimes, I've recorded songs that I thought, this is going to be a big one, and it just hasn't, and the other ones that I thought would, didn't stand a chance, did. It's like, I always say to people now, the only thing you can do is like, if you record a song, you throw it up in the air and give it to God, and he decides what's going to happen, Otherwise, you could drive yourself crazy.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious as to how they chose that song for you, because when you look it up, the Beatles actually recorded their version before you did.
I don't know whether they did or they didn't. I've no idea.
Yeah, they recorded it on February 11th of 1963. That was one of the 10 songs that they recorded for their first album. They
Yeah.
14. And
Yeah.
then you recorded yours on March the 14th,
Oh,
63.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So at some point they must have thought this would be good for Billy, but at the same time, they were very conscious of wanting to make sure George got some material and that Ringo would get a song on
Yeah,
that.
of course.
So I know John said that it was good for George because, you know, in John's mind, it wasn't that difficult to sing. So he gave it to George, but he also gave it to you. So
Yeah, well,
what the
yeah, I'll be honest with you. It might sound an easy song to sing, but you know, I mean, I could do it with no problem, but I mean, it's not that easy. There's things to it that, you know, to me, it's different.
right. I'm only telling you what John said in an interview.
Oh, well, you know, what can I say?
Hmm.
You know, I mean, to me, it was just a song. You know, I was just trying to do the best I could with it. You know,
Right. And it
you
was a
know,
good shit. It was number one in NME
yeah,
and other charts. I think it was number two.
you know, I made me die because there was critics saying, you know, oh, George Martin overdid the piano to hide my inadequacies as a singer. You know, it's crazy.
Hmm. Were the critics kind of cruel to you
I
for a
think they were.
while, or was it just at the beginning
I
of?
think I think the critics are cruel to everybody at times. You know,
Hmm.
that's their job, isn't it? To criticize,
Yeah, I know.
and it's you know, it's only their opinion. But you know, I think when you're younger and you're just starting out and you're like, I was like just a kid when I think about it. You know, it was it was pretty heavy. You know, working with people like George Martin and that, and you know, but I think you know, you learn to sort of just accept it. But when you're a young kid, it did piss me off. Yeah,
Hmm. It's tough to take when you're young and you're just starting out and you want everything to be just right.
yeah, I did. You know, and you know, things like the recording back then. You know, it's like I always like that dislike the fact that you know because of time that we had in the studio. Um, you know, some of the door tracking and stuff like that was slightly out because there was no like today. They press a button and it say automatic double track. You don't have to do it. You know,
Hmm.
but back then having to sort of like do the same thing perfectly the same
Right.
to me, you know, it was very difficult to get it spot on. You know.
Hmm. Did double tracking bother you? Because it was commonly done.
Yeah, no, it didn't bother me. I thought it was cool. I liked it.
Hmm.
I thought it was, you know, actually, John came up to me and he said, you know, I see you double track the voice on so and so. It's cool. I'm going to do that myself. You know, so you know, I think it's a good effect. It's more, it's better than using auto tune.
Oh,
You know,
I agree with you there. You know, it's
yeah.
you know, the latest technology and I'm kind of used to it, but you know, it's the sound of the times.
Well, you know, the thing is, you know, and I've said this in a class that I was asked to talk to these kids in Nashville, and I was saying the thing is, the the technology today, we can make better records,
Hmm.
but it seems to me that we're not. You know, and what I did say was, we may not have not had the technology back in the 60s, but we had great songs. And I think that's what's lacking today.
Okay.
Maybe, maybe I'll get criticized for saying that, but I don't think I'm wrong.
Well, we can go in a lot of directions here on that particular topic, you know. I think there's a
I
lot of
know.
great music out there if you really want to go and search for it. But
But
that's the thing, you got to know where to find it.
well, that's what I mean. You got to know where to find it. And, you know, it's to me that most people are not going to spend, you know, spend a lot of time surfing to find out about this stuff.
Hmm.
And to me, it's just what they're just throwing at young kids without any real thought or discretion.
Yeah. You know, this thing that you're talking about with today's technology, it all comes down to, it's not just the material, but sometimes when you have less to work with, it makes you work harder.
Well, it does, I always say to people, it's even like, I talk to people about like cover versions, for instance, and I say, without you can come up with a way, and I did talk to John Lennon about this a lot. Without you can find a way and make it your own, don't do it. It's like, I can't stand it when I go and see shows and somebody tries to do something like River Deep Mountain High, and I think, if you're not bringing out something different to the table, or or as good as it, don't bother. That's how I feel. I mean, you can lose out. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I remember talking to Paul about when he got the Buddy Holly catalog, and he says, have a look and see what you like and do it. And my feeling was then, I can't make a better record than That'll Be the Day. I can't make a better record of Peggy Sue. To me, they were iconic records,
Yeah.
and that's how I felt about it.
I agree with you. When you make it your own, when you put your own stamp on a record, when you put your own arrangement to it,
Yeah.
makes it interesting. It doesn't have to be better.
No, it doesn't have to be better as long as you put your own identity to it.
Right. Oh, I agree.
Yeah.
I often think about James Taylor when he covered Day Tripper. And if you think in your head, what would it sound like without ever hearing it? It's pretty much what it was, but he has a style that's all his own, and he made it his own. Not saying it's better in any way than the Beatle version, but I know what you're saying though.
Yeah.
Were you ever given any direction with any of the Lennon-McCartney songs in the studio from John or Paul?
Well, I get asked about like other demos, and I never had apart from that, the tape of John singing Joanna's Secret. Bad to me was he came to the studio and played it to me, and obviously he taught me the melody.
Right.
And same as I Call Your Name and From a Window I Keep You Sad, all of them,
Right.
And they more or less, I'll be honest with you, they would teach you what the song was, and they just let you get on with it. That was it.
And they probably trusted your instincts, and knowing that George Martin was there, probably knowing them well enough what they would want anyway.
I think so. I mean, but I mean, there were times when, for instance, when I recorded Bad to Me, we were struggling getting it together, and I said, let's give it a break, and we did the B-side, which is I Call Your Name, and in England it was, and I said to George Martin, why don't we put this out as an A-side? I think it's good, and he says, I think it's too much like the Beatles, and I said, well, that can't be bad. But we went back to Bad to Me, and we worked it out.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. We were talking about Do You Want to Know a Secret? And the Beatles recorded their version before you, but you recorded I Call Your Name before the Beatles did.
I recorded I Call Your Name a year and a half before they did. And funny enough, I really thought at the time it should have been we should have made a better version of it and made it as an A-side. But we're going back to when you had 3 hours to make an A and a B-side of songs you'd never heard before.
So in the studio, you had to learn the song on the spot, and you only had a few hours to finish it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd never heard Bad to Me till the John Lennon played it to me.
Right. I'll bet there are times when you wish you could have spent a little bit more time on some of these recordings.
Absolutely, but I mean, we never really thought about it. And let's face it, we're all starting out. We were, I mean, we're all really glad that we've been given the opportunity to make records, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it was like, it was a great honor to reach that level, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like today where people can go out and buy Pro Tools and set it up and make their own records and become pop stars.
Right. There's
You
good
know?
and bad in everything. To me, there's nothing like having a producer there that knows his stuff instead of an artist who's doing everything by himself.
Well, you know, I'll be honest with you, it's very difficult. You know, I've only ever done it once myself, and that was when I recorded "I Won the Fight."
Mm-hmm.
Before that, I'd used other people,
Right.
or it was a one-off thing, you know. But that was the first time I had a go at producing something.
Right. But you've had all these years of experience to learn all that
Yeah.
anyway.
Well, I'll be honest with you, you know, I think I used to just go in and do my part of the job, I thought. You understand what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I never sort of like analyzed the production and the mixes of songs and stuff like that. And quite frankly, in the early days, you never even sat in on mixes, you know what I mean? You
Okay.
recorded the song and they played it back to you, and then it was like, see ya. The next time you heard it was when it was on a record.
So even as you came to know George Martin more through the years, he wouldn't let you sit in on sessions?
Not much, no.
Hmm.
No.
Did you want to?
I think it would have been nice, yeah. I mean, it didn't bug me if that's what you mean. I just thought
Oh,
that's the way it was,
yeah.
you know. And was I going to argue with George Martin at that time in my life? No, I wasn't. I was just, you know, not known self-taught singer from Liverpool, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, I thought, you know, you got to take direction from people like that.
Right. You know, I've often said that there's three artists out there that benefited the most from the Lennon-McCartney songs being given to them. You're one of them. There's Peter Gordon, and Cilla Black had 3 songs.
Yes.
And not only that, but I'm looking at, because you had quite a lot of Lennon-McCartney songs there, and one of them was even a song that they didn't even release at all, which was "I'll Be on My Way,"
Yeah.
which they did on BBC Radio one time.
Yeah.
And you know, it came out later on live at the BBC, but during the 60s, Beatles recording was not released at all. So you actually had you know, very special song there that they didn't release for
I had a special song there. I had a special song with "I'm in Love" when I think about it, but I never got around to finishing it, you know.
Hmm.
And they passed it on to the Foremost, who had a hit record. You know, as I say, you know, I mean, I only, believe it or not, it was only years later I thought, you know, I could have had a hit with that if I'd have got around to finishing it.
Yep, I'm holding up the CD that came out in 1991, the best
Right.
of J. Kramer, which has your version in there with John in the
Yeah.
studio with some chatter before you
Yeah, well,
start
that
performing.
was the, John and Paul came to the session and said, you know, we've got this song, we've got to do it, man. I think we had like 15 or 20 minutes to record it. I think we ended up doing 2 takes, and that was it.
Hmm.
And I was just busy doing other things, you know, and I just never went back to it.
Hmm. You did go back to it when you recorded "I Won the Fight," the album.
Yeah, I know. I thought I'd give it another shot then.
That was a great version,
Yeah,
rocking version right there.
and I thought it was a rocking version, you know, but when I think what I did the first time was pretty good. You know,
Hmm.
when I was doing that wasn't bad at all for 20 minutes, you know.
What? Yeah.
What? Go on.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the other Lennon-McCartney songs, like "I'll Keep You Satisfied." You know, that was written mainly by Paul,
Right,
and "From a Window" was written by Paul.
right.
And what did you think of those songs?
What do I think?
What did you think of them as they were given to you? I mean, it's because you had a whole string of these songs being given to you.
Frankly, I thought they were all great songs.
Right.
I thought I was very lucky
Hmm.
that they, starting out to get such gems, from them is, it's amazing because let's face it, when I recorded them songs, I didn't think they were going to be played on the radio or I'd be playing them 60 years later.
Hmm.
I just thought they were great songs, and it was an honor to do them.
Yeah. But while
Yeah.
you're having the hits, while they're charting well, the next single is going to get attention.
Yeah.
So you'd have to feel that no matter what, these songs are going to be given a chance.
Oh yeah. But, I'll be honest with you. I still wanted to, I just thought like, I think the thing is, what I can say in my defense is, I don't consider what I did cover versions. Later on, what really stopped me doing the Lennon-McCartney things is I think somehow people must have got copies and did covers, and everybody was doing it, and I just thought, I got to, find another direction.
Hmm.
People were just like these bands from nowhere. Somehow they must have got somebody must have smuggled a tape out or something, but they, suddenly they were having hits with like Michelle and Oobla Doo, Oobla Da, lots of songs. And with me, frankly, my songs that I did were not covers.
No, I didn't say they were covers. It's
I
just,
didn't know you didn't.
but it's just an interesting part of their careers. I'm always fascinated by artists who not only write songs that are popular for themselves, but can write for other people. And John and Paul were so great at doing that at the time. And I'm wondering, as they're writing each of these songs, do they always have in the back of their minds, well, this one is for Billy, this one's for the foremost. This, what are they thinking as they're writing it? Are they thinking, well, it may not be suitable for the Beatles, let me try it for Billy or whatever?
I don't know. Like the last time I saw Paul, he was talking to his wife Nancy, because I'd never met her before, and he said, in the early days, John and I would sit at the piano and go, "We better write a song for Billy," and he started singing, "Do You Want to Know a Secret?"
Hmm.
And I think that's what they did. I mean, I think in some ways, they wrote songs, and let's face it, the songs they wrote for Stella Black wouldn't have been any good for me, so they must have had it in mind at the time. With the foremost, I think they thought about them, but I was lucky to get more than anybody else.
Right.
Yeah.
It's remarkable. There are certain artists out there, or there's a few bands that will take all these Lennon-McCartney songs that they gave to other people and record them like it's a Beatles song. And so many of those songs work. I mean, a lot of people think "Bad to Me" could have been a Beatles song, so it's just, I'd love to hear a conversation with someone like Paul where he said, I wrote "From a Window" for Billy because, or I thought this was most suitable for Billy,
I think, to me, it might seem strange, but I thought "From a Window" was a perfect song for me. I got more experience in the studio, and it came together very quickly, and it didn't chart as high as the others, but I thought it was a damn good record. I did.
Mm. Oh, I agree. And that
You
is
know,
Paul at the very end singing the high note, right?
yeah, you know, I had a cold on the day, but we did it together. Um, but I think that was definitely tailor made. You know, it's nice to get compliments of people saying like, you know, I've had people in recent years saying like your rendition of Bad to Me was really great. You know, it's amazing when it's like I had an incident a couple of years ago where I don't know how this guy managed to get my email address, but he got onto me. I called him up and I said, "What do you can I help you with something?" And he says, "Well, you know, my wife and I were very young and we're in college, and we wanted to get married, and everybody opposed it, and we ran off to another state and we got married, and it's our 50th anniversary at such and such a date, and our favorite song ever was Bed to Me. We'd love you to come and sing it at our anniversary." You know, to me, I think that was a real special moment to me.
Yeah.
You know, you know,
Anytime that you hear a certain song means that much to other people.
yeah, you know, and I love doing it for them. You know, it was a great thing to do.
Hmm.
You
You know,
know,
you you brought up something in a previous interview with me that I thought was really interesting, and it had to do with the song Little Children. So
right?
if you could explain how you discovered it, and then you had said to me that you felt that your relationship with Brian wasn't the same after you recorded it and it became a hit.
Yeah. Well, you know, I'll tell you what created the situation was I had a hit record with "I'll Keep You Satisfied."
Hmm.
I thought it was a good record. It was number 3, and you know, I was asked to do the London Palladium, and I said to Brian, I said, you know, I haven't had enough experience. He says, you know, the London Palladium is for people like Frank Sinatra and Judy Garland, and I've only been around 5 minutes,
Hmm.
and I think it's a bit, you know, I'm not ready for it. Anyway, I did the Palladium, and I wasn't very good. I'm the first to admit it. You know, I was very nervous, and the sales of bets of I'll Keep You Satisfied fell away. And I just thought, you know, I got to come up with something special, and I started going around music publishers, which a lot of artists don't do.
Hmm.
And I got, I think I got like 600 acetates, and I went to a place called Ryan Sussex, and I was drinking a lot in them days. But I woke up one morning and I played this demo, and it was Mort Schumann on the piano
Hmm.
with just him on the piano singing up. He didn't play the piano that great on it, and he didn't sing it that good. But to me, I thought this song has got something special. The only thing was I didn't know how to go about telling Brian, and you know, I was also offered some Lennon-McCartney songs that I turned down, and I was told that I insulted the greatest songwriters in the world and stuff like that. And I didn't think I had. I just, because like John Lennon said in an article shortly afterwards, if Kramer would have done them songs, it would have been catastrophic for his career. I just thought on that day, Little Children was the strongest song.
Hmm.
And frankly, I'll be honest with you, someone stabbed me in the back because it was trying to get on the Beatles bandwagon, and told Brian that, you know, Billy had that song up his sleeve all the time. And it did cause, Brian never said anything, but I felt there was, you know, there was something there. But I think that we got over it. And let's face it, I mean, the follow-up was from a window. So, like, you know, there was no big fallout, you know. But you know, it caused a strange, you know, feeling about it, you know. But you know, in time we got past that. You know, we were still great friends, and we still, unfortunately, we were still prepared to work on things together, and he passed, unfortunately.
Yeah. I only realized several years ago, the more that you read and discover, there's a similarity in the stories here between the Beatles, you, and Jerry Marsden.
Yeah,
Beatles didn't want to release How Do You Do It? And they asked George Martin, they wanted to go with their original material, and George Martin really wanted How Do You Do It to be their first single. And
yes,
instead, they went with Love Me Do. George honored their wishes, that it became the number 17 hit in the UK. And then if it wasn't for Please Please Me, it's a great thing, Please Please Me became the big hit that it was. But it turns out that worked in the Beatles' favor. You went against Brian's wishes and probably George Martin's wishes with Little Children,
mhm,
right? And look what happened there. You actually
yeah,
had a huge hit there. And in America, it was coupled with Bad to Me. They were double-sided hits. They
yeah,
both went top 10. So your instincts proved to be just right with that song. Jerry
yes,
Marsden, after having a few hits with How Do You Do It and I Like It, he didn't want to have another up-tempo song that's similar. So he wanted to have a ballad, and he chose You'll Never Walk Alone from Carousel.
right,
And he went to I guess Brian and George Martin didn't want that, but they went with it, and he had a number one hit with it. So the
yeah.
three of you all defied the powers that be, and at the same time, you came out ahead for it.
Well, it's like, to me, it's like you're not always right.
Yeah,
It's just what sometimes you just get a feeling about a song, and and you really believe in it, and I think with me with Little Children, I really believed in the song. I'd also, discussed with Ryan and George Martin and Dick James at the time. I said, it's time. I said, I think artists, a lot of artists, they have a few hits, and then the hits stop coming, and they decide to change. And I always thought, the time to change is when you're still hot. And they did disagree with me. It was like, you've got this winning formula, and why don't you stick with it?
right.
But it's like none of us know. Yeah, I mean, I there's other songs I've recorded where I thought this is going to be, great. It's going to happen, and it just hasn't.
Mm,
It's very you can't. Sometimes you're right. Most of the time you're wrong.
mm.
You know.
The public responded when it came to Little Children, and they made it a hit, both
Yeah.
sides of the Atlantic. So, your instincts then proved to be right.
Well, it's nice when they're right, but it's awful when they're wrong. Yeah. It just is.
Are there any ideas that George Martin brought to the table on your recordings that you thought really enhanced the songs at all? Anything you could point out?
Well, the thing is, a lot of people don't realize, the Beatles got better over years, but like for instance, when John Lennon played "Bad to Me," it was very in a crude form, and he played it on the piano, and then George Martin sat at the piano with the Dakotas and went through all the chords and embellished the song. You know what I mean? Better sounding chords, and that's where George Martin, helped me a lot.
Hmm.
And it's like one day I was in the studio, and he had this English coin. I went zing across the strings of the piano. I went, "What are you doing, George?" And he went, "Oh, nothing. I'm going to use it." I think it's somewhere on Bad to Me. Was somewhere there's like a thing of this chord from a piano string. It's in there somewhere. I don't know where. I've forgotten.
I'll have to listen more carefully to it.
Yeah.
There is a song, and I'm holding this up again because I've always loved this collection that came out in 1991. There is a song on there called I Know,
Yes.
which George Martin is given songwriting credit for with Bob Wooler.
Yes.
What can you tell us about that song?
No, I'll be honest with you, at the time, I wasn't writing songs. I knew nothing about it. And I'd never got really involved at the time. And I needed a B-side, and I thought, it was a chance to give him a few bucks, and I just did it. I'll be honest with you, it was one of them ones that I just did. I never ever did it again. A lot of the stuff, I'll be honest with you, that I did on albums, I did them in the studio. I never did them live. Like I did a version of Disney, Elvis's Latest Flame, things like that. But I never did them live.
Happens a lot with a lot of artists.
Sure.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about the Cavern. What it was like to perform there. Is that one of your favorite places to play? I mean, you hear so much about it would be so crowded and there'd be sweat pouring from the walls and the ceiling. And did you have that experience?
No, I mean, I'll be honest with you. I never thought about that. I just thought I liked the Cavern because of the intimacy, and because, believe it or not, the sound. I always tell people when they ask me about the Beatles, I go, if you didn't see the Beatles at the Cavern, you've never seen the Beatles. Because to me, that's where they sounded the best. PA systems weren't the greatest back then, but the Cavern always had a good sound. And I used to enjoy playing there. I enjoyed the sound there and the whole thing, I'd like to go back and play it again sometime.
Did you ever go back and play there when they moved the Cavern?
Yeah, I did, but they have the Cavern 1 and the Cavern 2, and I don't know why they just wanted me to do the Cavern 2, so I did that,
Mm-hmm.
It was okay, but it wasn't like the Cavern,
Right. What was it like among all the NEMS artists? Was there any kind of friendly rivalry between them, or was it just, they got along fine?
I just think that everybody done really well together. There was no, there's no big deal about it at all. Everybody got on great. I talked with Jerry many times over the years. We were good friends.
Yeah, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah. There were a few shows where several NEMS acts appeared on the same bill together.
Right.
And I have one listed here, the Majestic Ballroom,
Right.
Finsbury Park, you,
Right.
Jerry, the Big Three, and the Beatles.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, and also the Odeon Cinema and Robert.
The Odeon, yes. The Odeon, and did they mention that we used to do like the Locarno? It was dance hall there, and the Grafton. The Grafton was there were places like the come dancing places you see on TV now.
Yeah. So what was it like to do shows where you're all on the same bill together? I mean, is it just a matter of you're all friends, you know each other, and
yeah? And I think everybody was rooting for each other. When I did the tours with the Beatles, they would always stand at the side of the stage and they would always be there to compliment you and stuff like that. So it was nice.
Well, I would have loved to seen these kind of shows in the United States, have the NEMS artists, do that kind of thing. Obviously, once the Beatles got so big, even though when they toured here, they were package shows too, but wouldn't it have been nice to see
Oh wait,
you and Jerry and Scylla and everybody?
you know, it would have been great to do. You know,
Mm.
the shows like Finsbury Park Astoria, the Christmas show was a great show to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
There were in 63 going into 4, there were 30 shows that were done.
Yeah.
Were you on every show, or was it a different lineup each time, or what exactly?
Well, the Christmas shows.
Yeah.
The Christmas shows was like me, Scylla, the Foremost, Tommy Quigley.
Hmm.
I think that was about it. But I think other Christmas shows they did, I wasn't involved with them. You know.
Right, just the one.
Yeah, I just did the one, and you know it's amazing because there's no footage. But I'll tell you the truth, I wish there was, because it was absolutely hilarious, because we used to have this like helicopter that used to land on this, you know, big rostrum at the back of the stage. You know, I think it was made of plywood cut out, and they used to get it wrong, and it used to crash and fall to bits. And I was sitting in the theatre, I was in hysterics. I couldn't sing. I used to get hoarse with laughing, you know. And I'll be honest with you, there was these big rostrums that were like Christmas trees. And they used to sever the cables to the amplifiers and stuff like that. And you'd be stuck 20 or 30 feet up in the air. You know, I thought it was very funny. You know, you know, I'm amazed there's never been any footage of stuff like that. You know,
That would be pretty amazing, because
yeah,
you know, there was also comedy mixed in, right?
yeah,
Music.
yeah.
It was kind of like a variety show.
It was more like a variety show, yes. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the early tours were, you know, they'd have comics on them and stuff like that. You know, I remember but I felt sorry for them because they used to come on, and the kids would be throwing jelly beans at them. You know, I remember one night, you know, I stood at the side of the stage with John Lennon, and this guy comes walking off, and he goes, I feel funnier. And John said, "You better get back on there before it wears off." Which I thought was great.
I have written down here, so I'm reading this new book, got 4. Can I even find the book here? Oh, here it is. Fab 4 Cities, brand new book. Talks about Liverpool, Hamburg, London, and New York, all these different venues where the Beatles stayed in or performed in.
Yes.
And when you were at the Odeon at the time, the Beatles, you and Jerry, you all occupied the top 3 singles at the same time on the British charts, 1, 2, and 3.
Wow. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
I didn't know that, actually.
That's what it says there in the book. So
yeah,
everybody who went to that show, well, obviously just for the talent alone, but the 3 of you are hot.
Oh yeah,
there on the charts.
Great time.
Yeah. Boy, I wish I could have went to one of those Christmas shows, any of these shows. Seeing all these acts there.
The Christmas show was great, you know, but the rehearsals were. I'd love to see some footage of that, but it's not. You know, people went into that kind of stuff. You know.
Let me move on to a few other songs that you recorded back in the 60s. I loved your version of Trains and Boats and Planes. How did you come to record that? Because other artists, I know here in the States, we had Dionne Warwick recording it, but how did you find out about that song that made you want to record that one?
There was a great guitar player called Mick Green,
sure,
who was a legend, and he was with me for a while. And I was staying at his house in Wimbledon, and we watched. Funny enough, he was a great rock guitar player, better than anybody else I've ever heard. But we sat in his house, and there was a Burt Bacharach special on TV, and he did this choral version of Trains and Boats and Planes. afterwards, Mick and I thought, we started playing around with it. I had my acoustic guitar there, and we played around with it. And we thought, we could do a version of this, And frankly, we went to George Martin and suggested it to him, and we talked about how we could get it to where it would be good, because of we didn't have the same technology as what people had in America. There was, we did it with we tuned the guitar differently. We used like an old Gill guitar to play the bass, and there's all sorts of noise like dong dong, things like that. And we got different guitars and just overdubbed them. We didn't have keyboards to achieve them things at the time.
Right.
And then I suggested that Mick's father played in this mandolin band, and there was a mandolin on the wall of his place. And I said, I think we should use, instead of having like a choral thing in the bridge, I said, let's do an instrumental passage.
Yeah.
And Mick played the mandolin on it,
It's a nice touch on it.
His father's mandolin, yeah.
It's one of my favorite recordings of yours.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's another song. Go ahead.
I'm very flattered that Backrack always gives me a mention now, which is nice.
That's great.
Yeah.
Fantastic song. Just a great arrangement that you did there.
Exactly.
There's one other song, and actually it's I think the last song on your collection here. You Make Me Feel Like Someone. The first time that I ever heard this, I thought, sounds like the Righteous Brothers or the Walker Brothers, or were you trying to go for that kind of a feel?
I'll be honest with you, at that point, I really didn't know where I was going, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
And as a singer, it's like, I'm very much like this. I was in a studio a couple of years ago, and this guy said to me, "What are you doing here?" And I went, "I don't know." I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Oh, we're trying to get something that sounds like the 80s." And I said, "Well, I never think about things like that. When I go in the studio, I just think about recording a song, But listening to You Make Me Feel Like Someone, to me, I didn't think it was a good record, to tell you the truth.
Still, to this day,
yeah.
you don't think that?
Yeah,
Huh.
I'll be honest with you. And I'll tell you a story about that. I was doing a summer season in Blackpool, and George Martin sent me an acetate of it, and I didn't like it. And what happened was we flew down to London, and we remixed it, and I redid the vocal, and then there was the cancellation and a flight back to Blackpool, and we managed to get on a flight to Liverpool, and they arranged for a car to pick us up at Liverpool, and we just got up the road. It was rush hour, and the car seized up, so we never made the show. We did make the show, but they had to put us on at a different place in the show, and the show actually was put on by Billy Fiore's manager, Larry Pons, and he fired us.
Huh.
Yeah. So, that's my thoughts about that record.
But you said that George Martin brought you the acetate of that. Was it George's idea for you to do it?
I think it was George and Brian's idea.
Okay. They were still coming up with ideas for you even towards the end.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think I never thought so at the time, but looking back on where I was at the time, I think that I sort of like had a lot of success quickly. I was like had trouble dealing with it. I also had, funny enough, I used to get like reoccurring tonsillitis, and I had a real problem there.
Huh.
And it was one of them times where I think I'd lost direction. I'd have just done anything anybody said. I wasn't into it myself.
Yeah, I was wondering, after you had all that initial success, and then the hits started to become less and less, and they didn't chart as well, how do you know what direction to go in? What would work best for you?
Well,
Were you thinking at all into the future about maybe certain people that you'd like to record with as musicians or as producers? Or were you still thinking George Martin and
no, I'll be honest with you. I never, I just, maybe was a late developer. I just never thought about it. You know what I mean? I was just like always a person that I looked for good songs. That was it. I never, as I say, it's like, I'll be honest with you. I mean, I had like needles and pins, and when you walk in the room, given to me by Phil Nitze, who produced them
right?
when I was in New York, and the Dakotas didn't see them, and that really, was a blow to me. That I thought they were great songs and we should have done them, and the Searchers got away with them. You have to like that happen.
You couldn't override what the other Dakotas wanted?
Well, you see, the whole setup with the Dakotas, when I think about it, people don't realize it was just a business thing. They had a contract with Brian Epstein. I had a contract. And believe it or not, I had no say in the Dakotas. I might make a suggestion, but in the running of the band, I was totally out of it.
All right. Moving on a bit. There's a couple of artists here that I have to mention because I find it fascinating that this early on, well, this would have been 1968 in your career. Yeah. You recorded Harry Nilsson's song 1941.
Right.
This is before Harry Nilsson was really known.
Yes.
Yeah. How did you discover him? Was that through Derek Taylor like the Beatles did?
No. I'll tell you what happened. I was doing my paying trips to music publishers, around London. I happened to go to RCA. There's a friend of mine was the publisher there, Derek Green, who later went on to A&M Records. And it was like 20 to 5 on Friday night. And he said, I haven't got anything, Billy. And we were good friends. He said, but I got these songs in from this guy from America. And it was Harry Nilsson. And I said, can I borrow them and take them home? And Derek went, I'm sorry, but like they're the only copies in the world. And I said, Derek, give me a break. I said, I'll bring them back on Monday morning, I promise. And he let me have them. And, I took them home and I played them and I went, wow. We burst the pretty balloon, took us to the moon, such a beautiful dream. When the hands of the clock tells the lovers apart, it's breaking my heart to have to spend another day without her. And I was like, wow. And I went through the whole album and the whole lot of songs, and I thought, at 1941 to me, it was like it had a touch of that Little Children, where it was like the structure of the song was different. The way the bridge came in, but it's not. I just thought it was different, and I thought it was a hit record. And pardon?
I went, No, I agree with you. I agree. It's a great song.
And I got to, at the time, I just finished with EMI, and Brian was forming his own record label. And I went ahead and recorded it. I got an arranger, a guy called Johnny Arthey. And there was a girl singer called Leslie Duncan. Her brother was a producer, Johnny Duncan, and he was working for NEMS. And I got with him. I said, this like we used harmoniums and Hammond organ and some horn players, and I think we made a damn good record. But yeah, it was funny. It was like around the period when Brian died, and I don't think NEMS had their act together to get behind something like that.
Right. It's funny when I listen to your recording of that, there are times when you sound like Harry.
Well, as I say, you start singing a song, and there's bound to be inflections that you pick up on.
Hmm. Yeah. Did you ever hear from Harry Nilsson about your recording of it?
No, I didn't.
Huh.
No, because I don't think a lot of people even knew about it, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
I remember, I remember going in like the Body Club on Park Lane, and Ringo was there, and he went, "That's a good record you got out at the moment." I said, "Yeah, it's a pity no one's going to buy it." But no one's buying it. So there you go.
That's ironic because Harry Nilsson turned out to be one of the best friends that Ringo ever had. And
Well, I think that, if you were to ask me my favorites, it's got to be like the Beatles and Harry Nilsson, seriously.
wow.
To me, I thought he was very, very different, very unique.
Oh, I agree. What other
You know,
songs would you cite as being among your favorites of his?
there's other people too, but I think, I thought what he did was amazing.
Hmm. Well,
Uh,
the Beatles saw a lot in him. So,
I mean, I think what Harry did with that Badfinger song with it, Without You, was, to me, it was like an amazing record.
oh, yeah. And he
You
had
know,
the greatest voices too.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
He, I'm just glad to see people who appreciate or see something in these artists so early on. And this was at a time when Harry was starting to make just a little bit of headway. He had
right.
the Monkees record a couple of his songs. So this was around the same time when you were doing that.
Yeah. And, I just thought that he was very, a great singer. His songs were different,
Hmm.
really good.
Well, he was very unique. I could definitely hear a Beatles influence there, without a doubt.
Well, I mean, who haven't the Beatles influenced,
Good point. But with some, it's a little bit more noticeable.
with some, yes,
Hmm.
But,
Okay. Yeah. The
okay.
other artist, good.
Pardon?
The other artist I wanted to bring up, because it's a very interesting record that you made. It's a song, Town of Tuck, Sweet Toymaker.
Right.
Is a Bee Gees song.
Yes.
And you recorded this right when the Bee Gees came back from Australia
Yeah.
to live in England. How did that whole thing happen?
Brian Epstein said to me, "Would you be interested in making a record with Robert Stigwood?" And I said, "Sure." And I used to see the Bee Gees. I just come over there, always hanging around the office. I had heard some of their songs, and Robert Stigwood and I went through them, and decided we'd do Town of Tuxie Toymaker. And it was funny enough, it was the first time I ever did something in a studio with studio musicians, and such a big thing. And the Bee Gees did all the backup vocals and everything. It's strange, but that I always felt that I recorded that song in the wrong key, because it's it's funny, you sit at the piano or you play something on the guitar, and you find the right key for you. But with Town of Tuxie Toymaker, I go in the studio, and suddenly you've got this like 30-piece band behind you, the Beat singing, and you realize, shit, I got the wrong key here. I should have done it a bit higher. How do I tell everybody? So I just left it the way it was. You know.
Was there anything about that particular song? Because you had other songs to go through to pick. Why did you choose that one?
Because then again, uh, it was a good song. I liked that the rhythm changed the way it went from the verse into the chorus, and the change of rhythm, and I thought it was cool.
Definitely was very, very different for its time, I think.
I thought it was a very, people were getting into flower power and stuff, weren't they? I think. I'm not sure.
After Brian died, did you give any further thought to have NEMS represent you, since you already established contact with Robert Stigwood?
No, I don't know. I just, I just felt, I thought like there was no one like Brian, and there hasn't been anybody since. I've worked with a lot of different people and met some really nice people, some good people,
Mm-hmm.
But there was never anybody like Brian. And quite frankly, the way NEMS was going at the time, I wasn't really, pleased with it. Didn't like the direction they were going in, and I didn't think it was going to be an asset to me to stay when Brian died.
Okay. What direction were you not happy about that NEMS was taking?
Well, I didn't think that the people that they had there were really passionate about what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt, I need people who are going to get behind and work with me. And, I didn't think there was that spark there,
Yep.
Like Vic Lewis, he was a nice man, a gentleman, but he was like from the big band era, people like that, and I think they were more into like cabaret and, musical type things, which would have been nice, but, I wasn't into that,
Okay. All right. Let's move on and talk about the music that you recorded later on.
Yeah.
And what was it like for you in the decades that followed as far as performing live? Was it an enjoyable experience? Were you always trying to mix in new material? Because I know that you certainly enjoy doing that. In recent years, you released a great album called I Won the Fight in 2013. But in the ensuing decades, in the 70s, 80s, 90s, what was it all like for you?
It was very difficult because, I've got to be very honest about it, because I feel I'm an honest person. I think even now, people put a tag on you, and they don't think you've they go, oh yeah, so-and-so's from the 60s, and they just put you in pigeonhole you, and it's like as if that I always felt I don't want to be a one-trick pony. I want to show people that I can do a lot of different things, and I always felt that I would make some good records, and they wouldn't get the plays and stuff. What was I going to do? Jump up and down and say, "You better play my new record," I thought I'd made some good records, but I just got to the point that I felt all I can do is make good records, and it's up to God what happens. It's as simple as that,
Yeah.
Because you could drive yourself crazy, and I started to think that way, and like I Won the Fight was it's funny because I would do a lot of live shows, and tours and things like that, and do very well. But I was, frustrated. I was like, I mean, I was like, am I going to be singing these 5 songs for the rest of my life? Yes, I am, definitely.
Yeah.
People have bought them and people love them. And to me, I would be nowhere without them. So they're always going to be a part of my set. You know what I mean?
Right.
But it was frustrating. And I wonder if I came about just purely but by accident. I happened to be on my way home from a tour that I did with Peter Noon. I did like, Peter Noon and I did like 86 shows together in England. And I was coming home and my wife was reading the Times, the Sunday Times, and they were talking about this place, Roswell, and about the aliens that there's a big cover up there by the government that some flying saucer had crashed there. And it was nonsense, But they were having a show for the 50th anniversary. And I said to my wife, well, playing in a few weeks. And I'd never been to New Mexico. And we flew into Albuquerque and hired this car, and we go to Roswell, and it's like a Star Trek convention, so many people there for this 50th anniversary. And we're doing this amphitheater, and it was a real storm, and it's very rare out there. And Mitch Ryder was on, so he is set, and Gary Lewis was on the show, and myself, and we ended up not doing the show. And then my wife said, "Well, what are we going to do?" You got some downtime. I said, "Well, somebody told me the food was good in Santa Fe," and I drove to Santa Fe. I fell in love with the place, and I came back from there, and the switch flipped. And I'd not been in a music store, played guitar. My wife says, I said, "I'm going to buy you a guitar." She said, "I bought you one, you never played it." I said, "Well, to tell you the truth, it was a piece of junk. I didn't like to tell you. I didn't like to tell you." And I went in the store and I bought you a guitar. And funny enough, I sat home and wrote that song, Liverpool With Love, because I thought that Brian Epstein was being cold-shouldered by the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And that he'd done so much for music. He brought the Beatles to the world. And I thought it was like, I was disgusted by it. And I wrote that. And I was with a friend of mine. I went to one of his recording sessions. And there was a guy there said, have you got any songs, Billy? And I played him Sunsets of Santa Fe. And I didn't know, and I with the technology, I remember I emailed it to my wife, and I thought, this is great, we could do that. And I wonder what she thinks of it. And I get home and I said, "What do you think of that song I wrote?" She said, "I thought it was a dirge." I didn't like it. And I said, "Well, yeah, I realize now why people don't play or don't show their artwork till it's finished now." And funny enough, I did an acoustic thing with, I changed the key, and I just did it myself in an acoustic. I sent it to Billy Sullivan, who played guitar with me in the past. He's now with Peter Noon, and Billy played some great slide and acoustic guitars, and sent it back to me in an email. I sent the track to Billy Sullivan, Billy Kinsley, who used to be in the Maisie Beats, and he did all this harmony backing for me, sent it to me, and then I got this great keyboard player, Chris Palomero, and I was working with this guy from Hempstead, Don Solenza, who's one of my closest friends, and we put it all together. And so I had Sunsets Santa Fe and Liverpool With Love, and then I just carried on recording songs. I went back a bit. Like I'd done a song a few times in England, like a thing called Breakfast in Marin, and I did a version with just me and another guy, and I did a version with other guys. I had to play it to the manager at the time here, and he said, "That's a great song." So I thought, well, I'll give that another try, and I did it, and then I did the song. I played it to Don Solenza. He'd never heard it before, and I did the Story of My Life, which was recorded by a guy called Michael Holliday, who was from Liverpool, and I did it as like a tribute to him, And then I got all these songs, and I said to Johnny one day, I said, it's funny that we've put all these songs together, and we need something to tie together. And between us, it was very quickly we wrote "I Won the Fight."
Yeah,
it was off the bat, and I just thought, this is perfect for the CD. Yeah,
just seems like all these songs came pouring out of you.
Yeah, and I've carried on ever since. If I haven't written something, I've found something, and I've built up. There's a lot of things that I've still got that haven't been out there yet. And I'm halfway through an album that I started just before COVID. I started recording an album with Tom Hembridge, who produces Buddy Guy, and I did some things with him. Five titles, and I intend to go back there and do 5 more. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing them. And I've told you this a number of times, because whenever you perform locally, I try to see you. And I love the mix of the oldies, which everyone expects you to play, but I like when you put in the new stuff. And you also occasionally, I love when you do, sometimes you'll have so it's like an acoustic set. You'll go back and do some 50s rock and roll, and it sounds very spontaneous. Like I don't know, if you're not quite sure which songs you're gonna do, but I love that free form.
Everybody gets annoyed because I don't even know myself. I just start, and I'll be honest with you, Ken. The thing is, I think that the Beatles fans have been very kind to me, in the fact that with playing doing the fest and things like that for so many years, and coming up with new songs, they've accepted them and gone along with it, which is a great feeling.
No, when I see you at the fest, they get up for "I Won the Fight" and "To Liverpool with Love."
Yeah, and I think that's great.
Absolutely. I'm so glad that you still have this passion, and that you're writing more. That part of your career I find most interesting, because the songs on "I Won the Fight" are all really strong. And
I think it's quite frankly, it's really followed in the Beatles' footsteps, because they were the first people to do an album, and instead of putting like fillers and B-sides, every song had to be good. And that's when I did "I Won the Fight," I thought, well, that's what I'm going to do. They're all going to be good songs, and I've tried to keep that going.
What do you do to keep your voice in shape? Because you still sound so strong, and it's got to be difficult as you get older.
I'll be honest with you. I many years ago, I went to a singing coach, and he taught me things that I should have been doing years ago. And I have like a set. I have a thing on my iPad that I during the what's gone on in the last 3 years, I've sort of like drifted away from it. But when I'm sort of preparing for anything, I will go into this program and do it every day. And I'll play song, it's like I'll get in the car and go somewhere, and I will sing for like an hour and a half just to keep it in shape,
Well, it shows, because that's one of the things, that my wife and my family goes to a lot of concerts. We do see a lot of veteran performers, so we're paying a lot of attention to the voice, so we notice how certain people, their voices really have held up through the years. And like, for example, seeing the Zombies every time they come around, Colin Blunstone sounds amazing,
Well, I think in some cases it's taking care of your voice, exercising it the right way. You know, I mean, for all I knew, until I went to a coach, I could have been doing a lot of damage. And it's like, it's like you can't go like a well, come on, everybody, let's get together. You can't do things like that for 50 years. I get away with it. You know what I mean?
Right.
If you hammer your voice, it's you got to take care. And that's what I like to do.
I want to point out that a few of the songs that you've done in recent years, well, I think Beatle fans will be happy to know, if they don't know, that you also covered Jealous Guy, which you've done a really nice version of. You made a recording of that,
yes,
as well as performing that. Why that particular song? I mean, I think it's great, but there's so many great John Lennon songs.
I just thought that, I think that's a special song, and it was something that it was a challenge to do it, to tell you the truth, and it's like I think that I did it differently than the way John Lennon did it.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be honest with you, it's like I remember I was rehearsing to do BB King's in New York, and I suggested it, and one of the band members says, "You're not John Lennon," and I went, "I'd be crazy to think I was. I'm not. I know I'm not John Lennon, but I'm going to do it the way I say it." And we had a fallout over it, actually, because he wouldn't play it. But I just said I'm going to do it, even if I just do it with the piano.
When I hear your voice singing it, to me, it comes across as being very soulful.
Well, it's soulful.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it's a really good. I like to pay a tribute to John Lennon when I do a show.
Mm-hmm.
But I always try to pay tribute to all the Beatles. And my new set list, I play tribute to George and Paul as well.
Oh, nice.
I
know you've done Handle with Care in concert.
I've done Handle with Care. I've done something. I've done Yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. But with John, I just thought it was a special song, and he was a very special person, and I've always for years included a John song.
How much contact did you have with any of the Beatles after you left NEMS?
And I would see them at different things. Yeah, I would go and see their concerts and go and talk to them backstage. That's the way. I always felt, quite frankly, it's like people don't believe me when I tell them that I've never asked them for an autograph. All the years and the tours and everything, I just thought they've got enough craziness going without me joining it. You know what I mean? And it's like, I get people going like, "Have you ever thought of asking Paul for a song?" And I go, "No, I haven't." Because I see him, and we talk about the old days, and we talk about what we're doing now, and that's the way it is. I mean, it's like, I'll be honest with you, when I go and see Paul, I would never dream of asking somebody to take a picture of me with him. I think it's a kind of respect thing.
Right. It's also kind of awkward when you've been friends with these people all these years. Why would you want an autograph from them?
No, that's it. If people have said to me, "Can you get me their autographs?" I go, no, I won't.
Yeah, you don't want to abuse the friendship.
No, I don't. I think it's been, it's like when Ringo was playing where I lived in Westbury, you know, he called me up and said, come down.
Nice.
You know, when Paul was touring and I happened to be in Dundee in Scotland, he invited me to his show and a party afterwards, and that's nice. You know, I just feel, you know, they did a lot for me, and that's it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I can also say to you, because you know, I talk about in my podcast shows quite often about radio, and since that's been my background for 40 plus years, I know how radio works, and I know how frustrating it could be for veteran artists who are continuously recording and putting out good stuff. And it's very frustrating for them if they don't get the airplay that they once did, to not get discouraged by it, because that's just the way that radio is. Radio, certainly, if you're trying to appeal to a young demographic, like on what was called Top 40 radio, as artists get older, their music gets phased out, and it doesn't seem to matter how good it is. So all that I'm saying to you is that I'm proud of you for continuing and winning the fight by always going out there performing and recording new stuff, and just don't get discouraged by it, because people will discover it. People will discover your stuff.
Well, I'll tell you the truth. I don't think about that now.
Good.
At all. You know, when I won the Fight was not a platinum album, this, that, and the other, but there's a lot of people bought it, you know, around the country at gigs and things like that. And I'll be honest with you, I'm damn proud of it. You know, and you know, I put in the work, and as I said earlier, it's not up to me, you know, and you know, there are other markets apart from the, you know, let's face it, I'd be an idiot to think that I could make a record and aim at a teenage audience. That'd be crazy, you know. But there are markets with like what I say, adult contemporary music.
Right.
There's country music, you know. So to me, I just keep trying to record things that I like and give me pleasure, and hopefully they'll give people pleasure.
Yeah. I take it to heart myself, because it's not just for people like you. It's a lot of the veterans that are out there that are still putting out good music, and I'd love to hear that music get exposed. So, you know, it could, I'm sure it's frustrating for the artists, but they know how the industry works. But you were mentioning other formats like adult contemporary, which I could see your music getting played on.
Yeah.
You know, so there's so many factors as to what makes a record successful. But.
Yeah, you know, it's like, you know, fair enough. It's like, I think it's, a lot of people get rejected, you know what I mean? And, you know, I think of like these poor actors that go on auditions every day of the week. You know what I mean? I get rejected, but still keep on doing it.
Right.
You know, if I ever get a bit frustrated, I always go back to that. That's a thought of mine. You know, you know, I think, God, these people, they're going on auditions every day, and they're suffering rejection. A lot of them are just waiting tables to make a living and stuff like that. You know, I've been lucky. I've had a number of hits and a number of really good records. I've done things like, let's face it, I narrated the books for Sandra Boyd, and that was another thing I did. You know, that was something I never thought about. It came along, but she gave me a lot of fun and pleasure. You know. Yeah. So you got to look at, you know, look at it in a positive way.
Got to count your blessings.
Yeah, I certainly do. Yes.
Yeah. And Billy, it has been great having you on here for close to 2 hours now. I can spend another 2 hours easily. And anytime you're doing shows, let me know about it. I'll be happy to publicize it on my website and in my podcast shows. So just let me know.
Well, I'm doing the cutting room on the 6th of June.
That's right.
I'm looking forward to that, and I hope people come and see it. Because I haven't really done much. Well, nobody's done a lot of live shows for quite some time.
And you've played the cutting room quite a lot.
Yes, I have done in the past. Yeah.
That's a great intimate venue in New York City.
Yes, it is. Great.
Yeah. So,
yeah,
I'm going to put up the link for people if they want to go to the Cutting Room's website. June 6th is the date. As you add more dates, let me know.
Thank you very much, Kenneth. Always a pleasure to talk to you.
You know that this channel is your home whenever you want it. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Billy. And thanks to all of you for watching. Thank you, Billy, for all the great music.
Thank you.
Memories. Okay. And we'll see you all next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.